All right, welcome to this professional development, creating a digital tintype. We can get right into it here. The first step is to create a overlay manually, physically. So what we do in class is get a piece of copper and paint some Miracle Grow on it with a drop of soap, and then let that dry. And then the next day we get a nice little patina on the piece of copper. There's other videos on YouTube on how to do this in more fancy ways. I have a link to one by Jeffrey Santo here. Um, I I just use my method. I don't use vinegar or anything like that. Um, so this is the project that I've been doing for the 3 years that I've been teaching. And I think it's a nice hands-on way to kind of tie in history of photography, the from the 1800s, where they took pictures on these plates where they had to paint the chemicals on themselves. And while this is not the same thing, I think it kind of helps students, kind of give them a nice picture of what it is to be hands-on with with the photographic chemicals and tools and stuff, even though it's a different process, but it kind of puts them in that mindset. So I actually the whole plate was blue when I came back the next day, which was different than what had happened last year. There was like a really good marking already on it, so I rinsed it off, and then what ended up staying I kind of liked, so I didn't start over again. And the back side of it had really cool marks on it, kind of like a map of a island chain down there. So the next step is to take a portrait. I made a self-portrait because I'm quarantined here in my basement. My wife's working, and I didn't want to bother her, and I didn't want to put my daughter through getting her picture taken. She's at the age where, she's not as helpful with me as she used to be. I shouldn't say that she is, but she probably will be embarrassed to be in my video. So I've been using Camera Raw lately. It has a lot of the features of Lightroom without kind of creating all the catalog on your hard drive. So you can kind of make the Lightroom type adjustments in there. It's a workflow that I prefer right now. So I've cropped it into a 5x7, which is kind of like a standard picture size. But you can make it square or 8x10 or whatever you want. Okay, so from here on out, I'm mostly following the instructions on the tutorial of James Abbott that I have on the comments here, and he is using a high pass filter to add a really crisp sharpen to it. Then he goes back and adds a blur to blur out everything except the center parts of the face there. I actually went back and undid the blur because I shot the photo using a 50mm 1.8 lens, and I thought the shallow depth of field was sufficient, and I didn't need to make the effect in Photoshop. But the instructions are on his video if you want to follow that. He's does a really good job. He knows his Photoshop really well. He uses quick keys quite a bit, so it's a lot of watching exactly what he does, listening to him, pausing it, and going back and applying the step yourself. And sometimes you have to replay what he does here and there just to make sure you get it, because he goes pretty quick. I find my students are really good at doing this kind of thing. They're used to following instructions on YouTube, and they will have their phone out or a different window on their Chromebook and then the PC, and they'll do these tutorials pretty easily and get some really creative get really creative while they're following instructions. I think it's something really admirable about this this generation coming up, about how just used to technology they are and how used to video they are. So here's the blur effect I was talking about, and I just went back and undid that. But that's kind of how it looks when you use the effect that he teaches. So in this part, he uses the channel mixer to get um, that really early chemical effect where the film was really sensitive to blue more than it should be in the old black and white photos in the tintype era. So he tells you what numbers to plug in there. I think it's minus 50, 0, and 200. No, minus 100, 0, and 200 going down the color line there. And then you adjust it to taste from there. So after that, we go in and we use the levels and curves to bring down the highlights and to adjust it the way you want. All right, so while these adjustments are going on here, the curves and levels, I think it's kind of a good time to mention that a lot of photographers are actually doing real tintypes, making their own chemicals or mixing their own chemicals and making their own wet plates, taking pictures. There's videos all over YouTube. I have the one from Victoria Will from Sundance. I think it's one students can relate to. And with some of the celebrities, although they're kind of, the video's kind of aged a bit and the celebrities aren't quite as famous to this new crop of students coming in as they used to be. But anyway, use that one or kind of show them some other ones, and it's really interesting to see how those how current photographers are using this 1800s technique to make pictures nowadays. I've made copy work of both sides of that piece of copper, and I picked this side here with the nice patterns and the big contrast between the copper and the blue patina marks. So that was just an accident. I just wanted to see what the other side of the piece of copper looked like. So I'm going to reduce the opacity on this, and I'm not going to, I'm going to desaturate it a little bit, but I'm not taking all the color out. I kind of like that copper color in there. It gives the final picture that metallic look, and even if I do add a sepia tone later, it's going to already have that metallic copper look to it. And then the blue marks. So if I had shot this on black and white on a piece of metal, that copper would have retained some of its color, and the weathering on it would have turned a little bit blue or greenish. So it kind of gives it a good authentic feel. There's the opacity going down. I make a little adjustments here and there, but I think I undo it at the end. Anyway, this project took me just under an hour to do, watching the video, going back, making a mistake, undoing it. If I was going to give this to students this year again, I would probably give them 2 full 80-minute blocks to do this project. Including you know the top of one block, taking a picture of the copper, and then importing all the work, and then stopping once you have the files, explaining how to make the picture in the black and white, and doing all the adjustments to give it that old picture look, and then probably about half a block to combine the overlay onto the image, and making the final adjustments there, and exporting and turning it in and all that. So this is quite a big project for high school kids. But in the PD, I'll show some of the examples that my students have made, and it's pretty impressive what students can do here, given the right instruction. Anyway, that's the final image. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the live PD.